evening, morning, afternoon, depending on when you're listening to us. It's evening for us right now. Welcome to another installment of Fuel Stop Chats. I'm James. We have Chris with us. Hey, Chris.
Hey,
And
James.
special guest tonight, we have Rob, aka Road Warrior R Dub, who is from a few of the different Facebook groups that we're a part of. Rob has started them, and he has gotten quite the following, and we're going to get into that. How you doing, Rob?
Hey, how are you? Thanks for the invite.
I appreciate it. Thanks for hopping on here. It's surprising that we actually got you without being on your motorcycle, because it seems like you are constantly on it, and we are all jealous of the roads and routes and trips that you get to take. I believe you're getting ready to take one here in the next couple days.
Yeah, I would have left earlier, but life always sometimes gets in the way. Not always. I'm in New York right now. I'm looking to get down to Key West.
It's not a bad little trip right there. A little stop in Daytona. So I believe it's going to be Daytona Bike Week here in the next couple weeks. So maybe you get a little time in there and try to avoid some of the.
I'm there with some friends. I got a lot of friends in the industry, and of course everybody that stops by there. I'm not really. I don't really go for the rally party scene anymore. Although it's nice to have a couple beers with some friends.
Sure.
But I definitely go to reconnect with a lot of people in the industry and a lot of friends.
Yeah, last time I was at Sturgis, I think was the 75th, and Chris and I were both there, as we were both on a couple different trips. I was heading across country one way, he was heading across country another, but we just sort of crossed over at the same time, and we're like, well, shit, I'll be in Sturgis. He's like, I'll be in Sturgis. I was like, well, he goes, where are you staying? I said, I'm being in Belle Fourche. My sister lives there. He's like, my cousin lives in Belle Fourche. Now, Belle Fourche has like one stoplight. The happenstance of the two of them living in the same town and actually knowing each other, it was crazy.
And
that was the crazy part.
They actually do. I asked my cousin about it, and him and her, Jim and Bev, they were like, yeah, of course we knew who that is. And his sister was, yeah, I knew who that is. What was really crazy.
Everybody.
Yeah, I mean, what was really crazy about that trip was, I think you were on your way to Alaska, right?
Yeah.
And we were going out to the West Coast, and when we met in South Dakota, we both commented about how many thousands of miles we had ridden together, but never on our own bikes. We've been doing flying rides all over the country, renting bikes, riding together for 3-4 days, after business trips. And it was the first time we'd been together on our own bikes after thousands of miles of riding together. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, he had even flown into Tampa one time, and I was actually in between bikes for some reason. I had one bike that was in the shop, and the other, but I didn't have something to ride with. So we ended up renting in Tampa in my hometown. Crazy. I think, Rob, we were talking, what are some of the longest rides you've been on?
Some people say, well, how long do you spend on your bike? How many miles you do in a year? What's this? What I always ask, well, what do you consider a ride? And, what does that exactly mean? Does it mean like from where you get your mail until the time you get back to that spot, or until you stay at somebody's house that you might know, or a family? Like in 2018, I rode 78,000 miles. That was my best year, and that was only 10 months. But I spent, most of the year on the bike traveling. The single longest ride I was on was about 26,000 miles. And that was back in 2011. And I rode from New York to Arizona. I did all 48 lower states in a roundabout way, and ended up in Nova Scotia, and then made my way back to California, to New York. And that trip was 6 weeks long, but I did the 48 states and Canada in about 15 days of that on a brand new motorcycle, which went immediately into the shop after that trip to get warranty work done.
You don't say.
15 days. I mean, I thought I was pushing it when I did everything west of the Mississippi, to include, from Florida up to there. in 26, and I was burnt. I was smoked after 26
Yeah.
doing that.
Well, the Iron Butt Association has a certification, 48 in 10. So the lower 48 in 10 days, and there's lots of people that do it. And it's, I'm not going to say it's not difficult, but a lot of people do it. I think some people do it in 7 or 8 days, actually. And so I wasn't going, it wasn't a ride like that. It was more back roads.
Yeah.
Some states I hit twice. It wasn't a very efficient. The goal wasn't to just hit 48 states. It just happened to be all 48 in
Yeah.
around the way.
I don't know if I could enjoy hitting all 48 in 8 days. I mean, that's sort of like just being a long haul trucker at that point.
Yeah, I do a lot of endurance riding, a lot of IBA certifications, a lot of other types of long distance. I've done the Iron Butt Rally in 2019,
Mhm.
and I'm lucky enough to get accepted again to do it this summer as well.
Okay.
That's roughly 11,000 miles in 11 days. So
Yeah,
people,
so-
people say, "Oh, that's too fast. That's not the way I want to ride." Well, my answer to that is, we don't always ride like that.
Yeah.
It's something that we do when we want to do it. I'd actually like to have the record for the slowest time cross country. The fastest time would be great bragging rights, but I think better bragging rights would be how long can I take to get cross country?
You have better memories than bragging rights.
Yeah.
So, Rob, what do you ride? When you did the 2018, you had 78,000. You said you had a new bike in 2011 that you did 26K. What were those bikes?
Yeah, I'm on a 2011 Road Glide.
Road Glide, okay.
It has right now it has 290,000 miles on it. I got a new motor at 223,000 miles, and it was on the last day of the 7-year extended service plan warranty. So I got to thank my guardian angels, and they made that happen for me on the last day. It was a Sunday. I was on Interstate 90 on my way to Sturgis. I was in Missoula, Montana. I just passed Grizzly Harley Davidson. I was only about 28 miles away. I was lucky enough that they were open on a Sunday. So I called my insurance. I used their roadside assistance. They picked me up, and I thought my warranty expired a month earlier. So I roll into the place, and I said, I think I might be still under warranty, but I thought it was. Looks it up, and he goes, "Today's your lucky day. It's your last day of the warranty."
Wow! On a Sunday.
I don't know how that happened.
I've been to Grizzly. It's a pretty dealership, man.
Yeah, I've been there a couple times. Yeah,
nice place.
A couple times. Yep.
So
and they really took care of me there. They did a great job.
Those guys are great. They offered my cousin a free plane ticket to come out and trade in his Road King when he was ready. Terry, you met when we were in Sturgis. And I asked him, I said, "Hey, before we ride to Alaska, you going to make plans, stop through Grizzly and get your bike on the way?" He said, "I don't know. He's still thinking about it, but really good guys had him really set up for a trip." The Road Glide, by the way, is my favorite Harley touring bike.
Yeah.
By far.
Yeah.
By far.
It's the only Harley that has a fixed fairing.
Fixed frame. Yeah.
My father has an Ultra, and I ride that a lot, and it's comfortable, but it's not that fixed fairing. I can ride on my bike, if you have to, you can put both hands down and feel pretty confident, of course, until a gust of wind comes. But with the other bikes, I never felt like I could take both hands off the handlebars.
Yeah, it's rock solid in the wind. That fixed fairing makes all the difference in the world.
Oh yeah.
Yes, I think it's like less fatiguing for that reason.
Yeah, you're not fighting with it all the time.
Yeah.
And so when obviously you enjoy riding, it's kind of like marathon runners to me. I never understood that. The whole time I was in the Army, running through vineyards in Europe and getting exhausted and stuff, I kept thinking, this is 6-7 miles. How in the world could you do this for 26 miles? I would be bored out of my mind, right? And then you talk to guys that ride like you do. I certainly don't ride like that. 800-900 miles a day is a good day for me. And but not 26. Well, first of all, I have a job. I mean, how do you get so much time off? Or are you writing? Are you a journalist? Is that what's got you on the road, Alma?
Well, first, let me say that there are plenty of people with full-time jobs that actually ride more miles than me that I know, friends of mine. So if you want to do it, I guess, you find the time to do it, but they're doing iron butt rides all the time.
Yeah.
So I'm a retired New York City fireman.
Oh,
and
awesome.
That kind of ties into why I actually ride. I was a fireman on 9/11, New York City. We all know what happened that day. I actually lost my younger brother. He was also a fireman. And he always wanted to get a Harley Davidson. And we owned a contracting business together. And I used to, he used to bring it up, hey, let's get some Harleys and go ride. We both grew up riding dirt bikes. So we were both, riders. I never had a street bike. He did. He had a Kawasaki Ninja, this really fast bike. He's like, come on, let's go get some Harleys. And I used to say, no, we got to work. We don't have time to do this Harley stuff and travel around the country. We were both full-time firemen, New York City. We had a contracting business together. And all we did for 3 or 4 years was work all the time.
Mm.
So after 9/11 happened, a couple months later, two of my buddies were asked me what I was doing. It was like, we're getting off work on a Saturday morning, and I didn't have anything to do. They were on their way to New York City Harley to go pick up their Harley Davidsons that they just bought. Now, the 2002 was the first year they came out with a firefighter special line of Harley Davidsons. So I just went for the ride with them. And it's almost like my brother was there with me, telling me, you're an idiot if you don't buy this bike. Like, life is too short.
Yeah.
Get the bike. So I bought a Road King. I bought the Firefighter Special Road King. I got the last one that they had. They were only selling them to firemen. And, I don't think there's any such thing as coincidences in life. I think that was meant to be that way, that they asked me to go with them, and they had one Road King left, and I got it.
Wow.
So I believe I'm going to see my brother again one day. And I think, he's going to probably punch me in the face and go, really? You got it now? But anyway, and I started riding the Road King. The fire department has a riding club called the New York City Fire Riders. My first long distance ride was with them. We took a trip to the 100th anniversary of Harley in Milwaukee in 2003. And being on the road and traveling and the camaraderie that we built on that trip, I was hooked.
Yeah.
I was hooked on it. The next year, I went to every rally. I was a new guy on the bike. I couldn't get enough of it. I loved it. And I found that I was able to put these long days in, and I just liked it. I would find that the guys I'm riding with wanted to stop a lot more than I wanted to stop, and they wanted to stop sooner in the day than I wanted to stop. So just taking these long trips, I went to Sturgis a bunch of times, and then 2004, I bought an American Iron Horse chopper. Soft tail, but very raked out. And I had 60,000 miles on that bike.
Wow.
Before Mother Nature took it from me. And the Road King, I have 90,000 miles on. So I have those two bikes as well. And then started getting into some competitions. But my first solo long distance ride was actually on this chopper. I would go down to Florida. I would go to Key West from New York. I'd go to Myrtle Beach a lot. And then I started riding out. One day I was coming home with my buddy from Myrtle Beach, and I think I hit Interstate 40 and I told him, hey, I'm going to just go ride to California. And he's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I want to ride the bike out. I'm going to take Route 66 and I'll see you later. You know, I'm already retired. And to this day, he just can't believe that at that junction, I went west and he went north.
Just on a
That's
whim.
beautiful.
Yeah,
That is
so-
beautiful.
So then, like, I'm out there for a while, and my buddy contacts me and says, hey, these Chicago firemen are going to go and tour the 3 9/11 sites. And if you could make it, they'd love to meet you and have you lead them on this ride. Well, I only had like, I don't know, 40 hours to get there. So I just started going leisurely from LA. I ended up in Utah. I went through Zion National Park, Bryce Canyon National Park, and I'm on my way. And I was planning on spending the night, getting a few hours of sleep, but I just felt good. I kept going. And then it got to the point where I couldn't stop because I was going to run out of time or oversleep. So I ended up riding for 35 hours straight on the chopper to get there the
On
night
a
before
chopper.
there. Yeah. And I went into Chicago, like downtown Chicago, and I was expecting traffic, and it didn't disappoint. I got traffic.
Right.
So that was the hardest part, was the last hour and a half or so. Met up with some of the guys that night, woke up the next day, and we were ready to go. And I don't remember how many guys they had, 25, 35 guys. They had a couple firemen from United Kingdom, from England over. And met these guys. I'm still friends with them today. And we rode to Shanksville together. And then it was getting close to 9/11. I always have to be in New York for the anniversary. So they went their way, but I did get to go with them to the Shanksville. And then we said our goodbyes. But yeah, that was a fun trip.
And what year was that?
I'm going to say that was around 2007.
Yeah. Have you been back to Shanksville in the last couple of years?
I have. I actually saw the real.
It's nice.
Yeah, actually, it was a stop on the Tour of Honor, I believe, the year I went. And we could talk about that after this, but yeah, I actually went there, and it was really neat. There was a motorcycle in front of me on my way in. And I remember when I went earlier and there was no memorial, I do remember seeing the field, and there was a fence. It was fenced off, and it was like one of those memorials where people were leaving stuff.
Yeah.
And mementos. And well, this trip, everything was done. And I followed this motorcycle into the parking lot. I parked pretty close to him. And as he takes off his riding jacket, he's got his National Park Ranger outfit on. And so this motorcyclist I followed in was a volunteer, and he gave me a tour of the site. I had a personal tour. I told him, we talked a little bit about riding, and we're all brothers, and you know how that camaraderie works and everything. So he was just really excited to give me a tour, and I told him my background.
That's awesome.
And he told me things that I would never know if he wasn't there.
Yeah.
And he told me how the artist visioned and why the artist designed certain things the way they did. And it made a lot of sense, and it was actually quite good. So I would imagine that they tell you these things on the tour when you take a guided tour there. So if anybody goes, I highly recommend the tour. It just adds so much more meaning to the site. Yeah,
it's fantastic. They did a great job on it. First time I went, obviously I live a little closer than you do. I went up there right away, and they had a contractor trailer sitting there with books. Like, people had taken photos and stuck them in these photo albums, and that was the entire 9/11 memorial. And I talked to a couple local guys that lived there that came right after the plane crash, and they were talking about what they saw, because they didn't hear anything until after.
Right.
They saw a plane crash, close to where they live. They went out there and then little did they know what was, this was all part of that. But that's an incredible. And I was in New York, oh gosh, I don't know. Well, it was before COVID when I could go to New York. I used to go to New York all the time. Our office is in One Penn Plaza.
Okay.
And so we're there all the time. And I went to the memorial there, and they did a beautiful job there. The imagery with the way they did it, and the kind of what you said too, how the artist envisioned, it really, 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 really did a nice job on that memorial as well.
Yeah.
And then the one at the Pentagon. I used to work in the E-Ring at the Pentagon, and I was on my way down there for a meeting after I got out of service, and was on my way down for a meeting. My wife called and said, "Where are you?" And I said, I'm not even quite to Frederick yet." She said, "You need to turn around and come home." And I said, "Well, I got this meeting down at the Pentagon." She said, "There'll be no meeting at the Pentagon today."
Yeah.
And she said, "Turn the radio on." And so I tuned into NPR and caught up with it and everything, obviously, turn around and come home. But incredible day that day. I don't know how people can forget that easily.
No.
It seems like America kind of let that slip off the memory banks there a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're coming up on the 20th anniversary. So
Yeah.
if you think about that, anybody that's 19 years old and younger,
Yeah.
which includes a lot of students, young adults, they weren't even around.
Yeah.
It's going to be 20 years already. So there's a large part of the population that hasn't even been around. I think a lot of people that remember that day, they're never going to forget that day. And also, if you're so far removed from one of the sites, then it's less of could be less of an impact as well.
Yeah.
So one thing we did with the fire riders, we escorted pieces of steel to different places around the country. And one of the places we brought a piece of steel up from the World Trade Center after everything. We brought a piece to the Shanksville Fire Department, or Johnstown, whoever was first to the scene. I'm not sure it was Shanksville or Johnstown, but if you go to that firehouse now, you'll see a big piece of steel outside the firehouse in the shape of a cross. And we were instrumental in getting that steel there. We had an escort of about 350 motorcycles. We also brought a piece of steel to the firehouse that was first to the Pentagon. And we also brought some steel to the Marine Corps, to the Army down at Fort Benning rather. We brought a piece of steel down there. So we did a bunch of steel escorts, which was a great feeling, a way to kind of, keep that memorial going and help, other people memorialize it as well.
Yeah.
That's
and that
awesome.
kind of spawned you the Tour of Honor.
Yeah. So the story with the Tour of Honor is Steve Brooks and his brother Dave are the founders of the Tour of Honor. And I believe Steve was doing the Iron Butt rally one year, and he might have stopped at Shanksville at the site. And you're spending, 11 days just thinking on your motorcycle. He thought about coming up with this grand tour style of riding where it would be strictly memorials for military and first responders. So 99% of the memorials are just that, military, first responders. There's some other people that, there's memorials for other people that have done work of service as well, mixed into it. And then in the last couple of years, they were always including one 9/11 memorial in that group of 7. And now this year, so they get volunteers to be a state sponsor. Say you had Pennsylvania, you would find 7 memorials, and you'd keep it a secret between you and the founders. And then on April 1st, they would put it out on the website, and they give trophies out for the first 3 people that get the 7 in each state. Some areas like Washington, D.C., that's called the Mid-Atlantic So they include some of the states in the Mid-Atlantic together because they're just smaller states.
Yeah.
What else? I think South Dakota and North Dakota might be together. So there's 7 between those two. The Mid-Atlantic, actually, they have 16. I think there's 4 states and they have 4 for each. Anyway, it's a great way it's self-guided, right? So you can just join up. Part of the money goes to one of 3 charities that you pick. They have a first responder charity. They have Fisher House for the military. And there is another charity. I didn't take my notes before we did this interview, but there is another one. You can find it all on the website, tourofhonor.com. So they release the sites at midnight. And if you're competing, like one year I was purposely in Florida for April 1st, because they always had 15 people, going like at midnight. So I thought it would be a lot of fun to compete with my friends. I knew a lot of these guys. I've been competing with some of them for a long time. And they knew that I was either going to be in California or New York. And here I am in Florida. And it was quite a lot of fun. I actually saw them, we did the old opposite direction wave as we were, either they were going there where I was just, or I was going where they were just there. And so it's kind of fun, like to compete on that first day. You get your sights and now you got to figure out, well, what's going to be my most efficient route from where I am. And I think I came in second. I was a couple hours behind a fellow named Roger Bias, who unfortunately he just passed away from COVID, complications from COVID a couple months ago. And he won the state of Florida that year. And it was great fun. We each had each other's phone numbers. And I think whenever I would see somebody I knew, I'd get a phone call from them, and they'd be like, "Oh, how many do you have so far? Where you going?" Yeah, so I highly recommend the Tour of Honor. It's a great ride. This year they have some other rides within the Tour of Honor, and this year the founders, along with the sponsors of it, they're going to have a separate 9/11 memorial ride. And they're going to have a little competition on who can get the most 9/11 memorials during, it starts April 1st, it ends October 31st. And they're going to name the award after my younger brother.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
To honor my brother, and my family's really excited about it. And before I did the Tour of Honor, I didn't realize how many September 11th memorials there are around the country.
Yeah.
And a lot of them have pieces of steel. And, I met a buddy of mine, Ken Andrews, up in, I think we were in Texas one year, the first time we met. And I told him about the 9/11 memorials, these pieces of steel. And I told him how every time I see the steel, I have to go up there and put my hand on it. And the significance of that is there's a lot of people that were killed on that day that their remains were never found.
Right.
Along with my brother. So I feel like, when you touch that steel, those souls and those physical bodies are part of that steel. So many things just disintegrated or burnt or whatever the reason is. So yeah, that steel's pretty strong, powerful stuff.
Yeah. Wow. That's just a powerful conversation. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to change the tune a little bit. I see you're wearing America's Ultimate Long Distance Rider t-shirt. I believe this is one of the groups that you have. You have with a long distance riders within Facebook. There's some 20,000 members in that, and it's just growing crazily. When did you start that one?
So the Facebook group is called Long Distance Motorcycle Riding.
Yep.
I started it, what is it? Maybe I'm going to guess and say 3 or 4 years ago. Something like that.
Pretty big.
And it didn't grow from the start, and people ask me, how do you make it grow? And of course, you have to have good content. But the reason I started that, I'm part, we're all probably members of a lot of different special groups, motorcycle related groups.
Yeah.
On Facebook. And I think if it wasn't for these groups, I probably wouldn't even be on Facebook, to be honest. But I really do enjoy some of these groups. You can get the wealth of information on some of these groups, firsthand experience.
Yeah.
Is unlimited, even though, a lot of the comments are comical, if you will. But I started the group because I felt there was a need for a group that welcomed all riders, all bikes, and kind of would be able to help people that were looking to get into long distance riding without being intimidated.
Yeah.
There is a group that I'm a member of as well, the Iron Butt Motorcycle Riders. And that's a great group as well. I wanted to start my book group with the emphasis of, hey, you guys can ask any question you want and not get ridiculed for it. Let's try to build a group where everybody's very respectful of each other. And that way new people can ask these questions. And, you might think as an experienced rider that it's the stupidest question in the world. But hey, I remember when I got my bike in 2002, I didn't know anything about traveling on a motorcycle. My brothers in the fire department took me on a couple of trips and I learned.
Yeah.
So, I'm just all about, if I have some knowledge that I can pass on to somebody else and I can pay it forward, I'm more than happy to do that and get people to enjoy riding and exploring this country, because I don't think there's any better way to see.
Chris and I totally agree. Chris has a little side gig of ride history. So ridehistory.com is his side thing. And it's taking people out on motorcycle tours to go see American history, touring the Gettysburg battlefield. We put a music tour together where we go through the Appalachians, up into Nashville, down into Muscle Shoals, over to Memphis, and all the way down to New Orleans to, get the history of music. So yeah, there's so much history in this country, and there's no better way to do it than on two wheels. Just real quick, we've got like 4 minutes left, and I think one of the questions that people ask, and of course I say listen to a podcast, specifically ours, but when you're riding, are you more in tune with the engine, wearing a pair of headphones, or just earplugs, or do you listen to anything in particular?
I think most of the time I don't listen to anything, but plenty of times I have Bluetooth music piped into my helmet.
Yeah.
But a lot of hours I don't listen to anything.
I find myself doing the same thing nowadays. I'll ride. We did 400 miles on Sunday, and I didn't listen to anything except, Todd jacking in my ear for a little bit there, where I just told him the battery died. But it was just the silence of it all was great.
Yeah. So it's a mix of both. If I start out with music, I guarantee you by the end of that day, I probably don't have music on.
Yeah. I break mine up. I have music in the morning, kind of get me going. And then the middle part of the day, I don't listen to much. And then in the evening, I'll listen to some, getting to the hotel, or work campground, wherever I'm staying. Yeah. So one last question, burning question. If you were going to give anybody like the tip, what's the big golden nugget that you would share with people? And I do, by the way, admire trying to get more people into the sport of motorcycling, and especially visiting our national parks and seeing our country. And so I really applaud you. I love the group. I love the comments. I try to pitch in where I can help. But what's Rob's single nugget? What's the one thing?
I got, people they question a lot. Can I ride long distance on such and such a bike? And I really believe any bike can ride long distance, and long distance could be different for 10 different people. You could have 10 different definitions. One guy might think 3 hours is long distance, and one guy might feel long distance doesn't start until you're 24 hours on the road. So there is no one straight definition for long distance, but you definitely want to be comfortable. You're out there on the motorcycle. If you're a newer person and you're getting into it, have the right gear to stay warm. I have heated gear, and I don't care. Like, I'm not ashamed to say I have it. First time I wore that heated gear, I couldn't believe I waited so long
Right?
career to get it.
Right?
Like, I was like, this is so warm, it's going to put me to sleep.
Love it.
And I would say, there's a lot of good clothing out there, and I would dress appropriately for the actual, the long distance riding. You could go here and there with safety. I believe anybody should be able to ride any way they want. I'm much more cautious and safety wise in what I wear these days as compared to when I first started.
Awesome.
I didn't wear a helmet when I first started. Now I'm wearing a full face helmet. So
yeah. And I think we're along the same lines on that. It's all about the gear.
So get the right gear. Even if it's summer, have enough clothes for winter, because if you go up in elevation, you ride past dark, you're gonna get cold. Just have enough clothes to stay warm.
All right.
Yeah.
So we're out of time. We're about to get cut off, and it will shut us off abruptly. So I want to just say thank you for hopping on.
Yeah.
Have a safe trip down to Florida, and Rob, Chris, ride her out.
Thanks again, Rob.
Thank you for having me.
Ride her out.
Rob, anytime.
All right, great. I'll see you guys on the road.
You bet.
All right.
All right.